Well, gee, I wonder what it is I'm going to talk about today. It's a little bit weird to come back and look at because it's September 11th, 24 years later. It's my 1,000th episode. That should be reason for celebration. I've been doing this 1,000 times. Now, this used to be weekly. That's why or daily rather. That's why the numbers jumped up so high. But yeah, we've done this 1,000 times. And, well, yeah. Charlie Kirk got shot, and I had a lot of thought about this over the past almost 24 hours about what happened with that and what I wanted to continue doing. But we'll talk about that on the other side of the break because, there's quite a bit to talk about. And that's not the only news that we have going on, but that's going to be the biggest news that we have. On other news, it just so happened that later on in the day after Charlie Kirk got shot, a Denver area high school also had a shooting, leaving initially 1 dead and 3 wounded, including the shooter. Update on that, the shooter has also passed from his injuries, not surviving critical care, so we'll talk about that and what's happening with that. The rest of the world seems like it's ready to go to war as well, with Poland claiming that they are scrambling jets for Russian drones. I have questions, of course, because of the Ukrainian missile that we saw that landed in Poland that was initially blamed on Russia as well, and that story got completely swept under the rug. And Qatar and Israel are also going back and forth at each other right now, so we're going to talk a bit about that because, hey, when the world is destabilized, those in the government seem to win for reasons that I don't understand. But we're going to talk about all this and more. Admittedly, we're going to talk mostly about Charlie Kirk today. So strap yourselves in, grab a little bit of lunch, because, well, I missed breakfast, I can tell you that. But we will see you on the other side of the title card, and there's victory in the Lord, I say. Victory in the Lord. Cling to the Father and His holy name, and don't go riding on that long black train. I'm J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning, everybody. And for those of you in my Eastern time zone friends, good afternoon, because it is just past afternoon at this point. With the growing numbers here, I actually might debate this being my regular time. I don't know. But yeah, it looks like we've got some good gathering here today. Hi, my name is J. Edgar. Oh boy, do we have to talk. Because this was a big one. And I had a lot of thought about this. Now, the reason that I didn't start until 11 was because Pom had some doctor's appointments this morning. I made sure the baby was taken care of, and she actually did sleep for quite a while. Another slight part of that is just I did need to take some time and sleep this morning because she's at that stage where she likes to stay up all night and decide whether or not she wants to take the bottle while the bottle is in her mouth. And typically on the first time is is no, we're not going to do that. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't get to sleep until like 3 o'clock in the morning. But regardless of that, Charlie Kirk passed away yesterday. He didn't pass away from a natural cause. He didn't pass away from, going out there and trying to save a school or a bunch of kids in a school shooting. He didn't have a health issue underlying. No, he got shot in the neck. I have seen the video up close. I have seen it, the up close. Now, we won't be watching the up close one here today because I have been playing around with YouTube TOS for 7 years at this point. And I know what it is that they're going to allow on their screen and what they are not going to allow on their screen. And trust me, after what it is that I saw, they're not going to allow that on the screen. That was pretty graphic. But I want to talk a bit about my reaction to what happened with that first, and some of the things that went through my head and have been going through my head for the last 24 hours. Because this was a big thing. It's not every day that you find out that somebody who preaches what is considered to be the same kind of message as you do gets shot in the neck on live TV. I mean, hell, we haven't had anything like that since JFK was coming around a corner in Dallas in 1969. We haven't had anything like that in a long time. I mean, yeah, Big Don got grazed in the ear because he happened to turn his head at the very right time, which it's funny to that so many people who are now coming out here. And yes, there are people that are praising what happened to Charlie Kirk and thinking it's the best thing for society. There are a lot of those people who don't even believe that the Donald got shot at, that he just had a ketchup packet in his ear. So, I don't know. There's a ton to go over here. There's a ton to talk about. And they're just... I'm going to be completely honest with it. I'm not a conservative. I've never been a conservative. I considered myself to be a conservative because of the us versus them mentality. And I had very, very strong opinions against Barack Obama. And when I told myself that I can't go down this very, very big government takeover of everything road that Barack Obama went down, I thought that I was a conservative. Then I remembered all the big government stuff that Bush did, and, well, let's be completely frank, all the big government stuff that Donald Trump did in his first term and all the stuff that he's doing in his second term. And that was where I realized that I wasn't a conservative. Now, I'm not a libertarian, and that is less the fact that I tend to agree with the message that they're trying to put off, but more on the fact that I completely disagree with what they actually do in practice. Because what they do in practice is basically make anybody cringe so hard they can never come back and join their movement. With all of this being said, I legitimately considered hanging up my webcam yesterday and this morning. Taking my microphone down, hanging up the webcam, because I look over. My beautiful girlfriend walking up the stairs right now, which the studio door is open for the first time because we rearranged the office here, so it can be open without a whole lot of concern about anything going on. And my beautiful daughter, who is sitting in a cradle just off screen. Literally, I'm looking at her right now. I am not as big of a voice as Charlie Kirk. But that also means that I don't have anywhere near as much security standing around me. One of the first decisions that I made when I decided to start making political commentary, and this goes back to the Ed's blog days, back when I was only writing. Everyone knows that I don't use my first name. That's why it says J. Edgar on the screen. That doesn't have anything to do with that. That's more of an ex-girlfriend that was talking to me when I was 23. But I also chose to leave my last name out of the public discourse because my parents did not agree to be a part of the public discourse. My sister did not agree to be a part of the public discourse. None of the people that I love agreed to be a part of this public discourse. So I've always been very careful to keep, not necessarily my own identity, because, I mean, you could probably find ways to go figure out who it is that I am based on just the fact that I sit on the camera and I don't do VTube stuff. That I actually put my face to the things that I'm saying. But I couldn't live with myself if something happened to either of them, or something happened to me, to leave little Ed Jr. over there without the second parent in her household, or small human without the parent. And she's been thriving so much by having me around here, and God knows, I don't know what Pom would do if just suddenly I'm walking down the street and somebody recognizes me from Contemporary and decides that they didn't like what I had to say about small government and put a 45 in the middle of my head. We live close to a very, very liberal city. The chance is very, very low because, again, this is a small channel. It's never zero. And I've been thinking about that, and I've been pouring that over in my head all morning. But a part of what I'm realizing when I go to this is that, yes, these are concerns that I have, but these are concerns that the person who executed Charlie Kirk in broad daylight in front of 1 million people, both in person and on camera, want to have the consideration for. Now, yes, your big creators, your Ben Shapiro's, your Tim Pools, and yes, even that miserable little, I'm not going to say that particular F word about him, but that miserable little fruitcake, Nick Fuentes. People like that have millions of dollars of security around them. Didn't save Charlie Kirk, obviously, but I mean, people like that have built their entire careers off of coming in saying the things that they say. If I did decide to step away right now, decide to hang up my microphone, I still have my career. I still have my job. I still have plenty of opportunities to go back and work in the field that I've chose to work in. I was even saying while I was feeding Ed Jr. earlier today, like, this would be so much easier if I just did video games. Probably have a lot more subscribers. My opinions on everything would be masked. But I'd have a buttload more subscribers. People would come in and watch me play Pokemon or Final Fantasy or things like that. And, you know, I could have Pom sitting over my shoulder, which, I mean, she's been open with being public too, so I'm not as afraid of something happening with that. But, like, I made a conscious decision. My daughter is never going to be on camera with me. She may, at some point, when she has reached the age of cognizance, decide that she also wants to go back and stream, and hey, she might even have very strong opinions about what's happening in the world. She might want to do that, or she might want to play video games or stuff like that. But that's going to be her decision. And she's not going to make the decision until she's old enough to cognizantly make that decision herself. But realistically, if I just played Pokemon on stream, I could hold her right in my arms and say, hey, look at this beautiful child that I brought into the world. As for right now, yes, I'm going to be more careful. Make sure that, again, my surname isn't out there. Never going to tell you guys what town that I live in. If it leaks out, that sucks. But again, it's one of those places where it's small enough that just saying the name of the town and my first initial middle name is enough to come back and basically tell you, hey, this is where I live. And probably find my house pretty quickly at that point. But I'm not going to let people who are terrorizing others into silencing myself or anybody else. What kind of a person would I be if I just let something like that silence me? So that's my 2 cents on where we're at and why it took me so long to come back and make this decision. I didn't have the live chat up for that here, so now I have to go, or not have to. It's not a chore. I get to. I get to see what it is that you guys have to say. Now I get to see what it is that you guys have to say about what I was saying. Huh, there's one right there. Cheap followers on streamboo.com. Alright, let's see. I know we had a competition on who was first because, and I put the screenshot in the Discord. But yeah, Palm and Vong. 10:59:46, both. On the nose. It's impossible to decide who was first except for who was arbitrarily chosen. And that might even just be alphabetical at that point. Because P comes before Y in the chat. I checked all the chats. It's the same in all of them, so. But yeah, they are down to the second. Decca over in the Discord says the tie goes to family. There you go. Let's see. Yeah, we have the big argument over who's first, who's not. Goats and Scarves has joined us as well. 110648. He's not quite first. Elaine, which I'm not familiar with that name. Was there a name change somewhere? I mean, I'm glad to see you here. Absolutely, 100%. But, and it looks like, yeah, you're not a first-time chatter either. I checked the Twitch records, and yeah, you've been here for a while. Or at least been a while since you've seen me stream, so you've been here. But yeah, I'm not familiar with that name. So, welcome. Decca says, how do you kick these bots from Restream bot? Let them go. Or if you do want to go back in on that and jump in the kick, I guess I would have to see what your screen name is on kick, and I can mod you up, and you can do that. Palm can go back and time some of these people out. Let's see, who else do we have going on here? The Rumble chat back up here. Palm says, small human care needs to be juggled. Yeah, it happens. Gotta say, I think Papalinga S. Don't know what you're saying with that. Goats and Scarves says, Tim Pool says, shooters confirmed trans Antifa. I don't care about that until the official name drops. I'm going to be completely honest with that. And that comes a little bit to the reactions to some of this that we're going to be talking about. So, put my Corgi's hat back up. Palm muted the bot. Yep. I think Pengalingua would have been a better song choice for the lyrics. I know it's a pretty Catholic-specific song. Fair enough. I'm not familiar with the song, so I can't go it. Sing my tongue, the glorious battle, sing the last, the dread affray, o'er the cross, the victor's trophy. Sound the high triumphal lay, tell how Christ, the world's redeemer, as a victim won the day. I like that. Again, I'm not familiar with that song, but I like that. That's... allegedly pro-trans and Antifa wording engraved on the ammo. Still haven't seen anything of that one. Taxing gone liner, blah, 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 blah. Cheap viewers on streamboo.com. Should we remove the space and check that out? I don't know. Threw away a bunch of milk. Makes her sad. Yeah, that is sad, actually. Alright. We are done. We're up with the chat. We are caught up with everything now. So, I guess let's talk about what's actually happening with the news. So, I do have to take my Stream Deck and actually get it set up at some point here. The only things that I put on it were a scene switch, just the webcam with myself in it scene, and then the Ed Talk cover scene. And then, yes, the headache started and we were gone for 3 months. I do want to get that taken care of, though. It's a very wonderful gift, and I love the fact that it's here. For what little bit I have used it, it's very convenient. I like it. All right. Let's check in with the Dow to start with. Let's get a refresh on that and see what we got going on. There's a fly in this room again, by the way. Hope it's not bothering Ed Jr. She's over there trying to snooze a little bit. All right. On the Dow. The Dow is up today. The Dow actually took a pretty sharp jump up today here. It's at 46,082.48. That is up 600 points so far on the day, or 1.3%. And some of this is partially because the markets are celebrating the high core inflation and the high unemployment that's supposedly coming off today. What they're celebrating off of that is the fact that this is going to be more pressure for the Fed to drop the interest rates. Actually, I just had a talk with my mortgage broker yesterday about that as well. We're sitting at the idea of, okay, do we come back out and try to refinance right now because we've lost at least a point in the interest rate so far, and the auto dialers and the auto callers are out here saying, hey, I want to refinance you, come on over. Some of them are probably scams, some of them are probably legit. I do hope that she doesn't call me today while I'm on stream, although I have everything muted today, so it wouldn't be too much of a imposition if she did. But yeah, you can see over there on the chart that right at the open, we had that big jump go off, and it's just been on a mostly steady climb with a couple little valleys in there as it goes. Let me see if anything has changed up on the news. Otherwise, we'll take the CNBC article that I already picked off for this. I think the backlight went in my middle screen, so sometimes finding the cursor is a little bit difficult as we go. All right, on live updates from CNBC, Dow jumps 400 points to record as August inflation increases, likely won't derail Fed rate cut. This is a live updater from Sean Conlon and Alex Herring. Stocks rose on Thursday as traders anticipated that the latest reading of a key consumer inflation gauge won't stand in the way of a Federal Reserve lowering its benchmark interest rate next week. The Dow gained 462 points, or 1%, and had scored a new all-time intraday high. The S&P climbed 0.6% and had likely touched a fresh record this session. The Nasdaq advanced 0.4%. It was a confusing batch of numbers, with the Consumer Price Index reading for the August coming in hotter than expected on a monthly basis, but in line with expectations on an annual basis. The CPI reading showed an increase of 0.4% for the month, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, higher than the 0.3% that the economists polled by Dow Jones were expecting. However, the index recorded 2.9% on a 12-month basis as expected, so it's still a little bit higher than what they want to see, obviously. And it's much, much higher than I would like to see. I mean, we had a couple quarters of negative inflation under Trump 1. Can we do something about that? And yes, by all means, our importers, our big business leaders are going to do everything that they can to stop that, because if we find out that the tariff regime actually does something properly, then they might actually have to consider building something here and employing American workers, cutting into their profit margin. Additionally, so-called core CPI, which excludes volatile food and energy, increased 0.3% in August and 3.1% from a year ago. Both were in line with the Dow Jones forecasts. The report comes a day after the Producer Price Index showed an unexpected decline of 0.1% on the month, so our next month's, our September inflation may actually take a little bit of a drop. We'll see what happens, of course, in there. The PPI rose 2.6% on a 12-month basis. Also, today, weekly jobless claims saw a surprise jump. The figure for the week ended September 6 increased to 27,000 from the previous period to a seasonally adjusted 263,000. That's more than the 235,000 that was penciled in. Calm down, Ed Jr. Yeah, she's sitting over there grunting. She might be going to the bathroom in her pants. Traders still generally expect that the Fed will cut rates by a quarter percentage point on September 17th, per the CME FedWatch tool. They even slightly increased their bets that the central bank will cut by a half percentage point. They might go further. I'm going to be completely honest. Now, if they don't go further, there may be some politics around it, and especially if they go less than that. But they might go further with the job jump. I could see a reality where the Fed drops 0.75. And that might be the time where I start selling some of the stuff that I have available to sell and see if we can't get this house refinanced and the closing costs taken care of, because that is going to be a lot of change on everything. Elaine, I'm here. I'm right wing. I am not right wing. I hope this bubble pops. We'll see what happens. Palm says, I don't know what Ed thinks of Catholic hymns. I don't know enough of them. I'm Lutheran. Oh, crap. I just admitted I'm Lutheran on air with a Catholic in the chat. Well, technically two, but one has walked away from the faith. So we get to have the Martin Luther argument. Anyway, that is your finance news of the morning. Now let's get into it. We're going to start with a video from Alex Jones. Because all great things start with a video from Alex Jones, apparently. Alex Jones, breaking video. Charlie Kirk shot while speaking at a Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Long is typing. Well, let's watch the video. Now, again, as I said when I was stating my case for everything, we will not be watching the up-close video. It is horrendous, and it is in the Discord if you guys do want to see it. I'm not going to censor it from you guys, but it is in the Discord if you want to see it. Horrifying. Viewer discretion advised, but it's there.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Oh my God! Go, run! Oh!
And it all did cut away pretty much. You heard the crack, and you saw him jump, but it's far enough away that you can't come back and see the really, really graphic stuff. This actually still might be enough to trip the YouTube censors, but I don't care. I'm still going to re-upload it. And if they give me a few day timeout, then we'll just go to the backup channel. Because we do have the backup channel specifically for this reason. But yeah, there he is. Yeah, somebody even said right at the beginning of there's another video, it doesn't look like he made it. Yeah, if you watch the close-up video, I mean, when I saw the close-up video, people were still saying, well, he's in critical condition, he's stabilized in critical condition, he might come back and make it. As soon as I saw the close-up video, I said, there's no way. There's no way. Because you can see where it hits and you can see the amount of blood that comes. There is absolutely zero way. Looks like we have a trend of 1-800-CALL the FBI. Let's see what that's all about. Apparently they have the person of interest with it looks like he might actually have a TPUSA shirt on, but sunglasses and everything else. Hat, sunglasses, everything else. Like, how do you identify that person? I am using my Chrome over there on this one, but yeah. You don't really have a whole lot to go on for that, unfortunately. Nice. Okay. I don't usually go into my notifications for this. I checked my notifications while I was moving that back over. I had asked Arbolt to make me a meme for the fact that it's September 11th and Charlie Kirk was also deceased the day before, and we have to talk about it today. Arbolt does not disappoint. The Whispering to Bush meme that keeps on giving. For those of you on the audio platform, we have the iconic scene of somebody whispering to Bush that the second tower fell, and his concerned face, and the caption for that is, "The shooter was on the FBI radar." Oh, thank you, Arvolt, for that. He does not disappoint. He never does. I ask him for a meme. and he makes a meme. It's a beautiful meme. It is a beautiful thing right now. But that is where we're at for that. Yeah. We might have to mess with the lighting and the backlight in here because, yeah, I can't see my cursor over on that side of the screen. All right, we've got NBC News with coverage of this. We'll look at that while I turn my camera off and go and turn that light on and see if it helps. Oh, they're muted.
Custody has just been released. That means that tonight the manhunt continues for the person responsible for this horrific assassination.
Hundreds of people were there at Utah Valley University to see conservative activist Charlie Kirk, who had just thrown hats to the cheering crowd and posted on X, "We are so back," touting the first stop on what he called the American Comeback Tour. The 31-year-old conservative star who rallied young people behind President Trump. He just started talking there under that white tent when witnesses say one shot rang out. The shooting was captured on video and is too disturbing to show. Immediately, crowds started running for cover.
We just heard an immediate pop. We're like, what's going on here? And then after that pop, we just saw him in his neck. We saw him fall backward.
I was the last one standing because I couldn't quite believe. I thought maybe it was a stunt. I'm still shaking, and I'm still crying. I love Charlie Kirk. He's awesome. And I pray for him and his family.
Brendan says he was just 15 feet away. He says Kirk was answering audience questions. He had just been asked about mass shootings when the shot was fired.
He was actually just talking about mass shootings too, which is crazy, with the trans shooting that just happened recently with the trans shooter. And as soon as he got done answering the question, we heard a loud pop. He got hit in the left side of his neck and dropped. We all dropped. His security dragged him out of there, and we just ran. I was more angry, I would say, than terrified. You know, we hear all the time that we're the problem, we're the violent ones, we're the issue, and yet this is the second mass, shooting attempt on a political figure. First Donald Trump, now we have Charlie Kirk.
Kim had come to see Kirk with her daughter Bentley.
It was scary because you don't know if it's real, if it's not, but you just have to go with your gut and get out of there.
Former Congressman Jason Chaffetz was also there with his family.
People came out to hear the dialogue, the back and forth. Ask him anything. That's what Turning Point and Charlie Kirk's all about. Ask him anything. In the midst of that, the shot rang out.
He says everyone started running and screaming.
And I just hope and pray that somehow, some way he survives this.
But just before 5 this afternoon, President Trump posting the tragic news. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States.
Okay, that is the worst Trump reading ever. You got to put the voice behind it, lady. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood the hate or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America, the greatest United States of America, by the way. None of them is greater than Charlie. He was so great. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, your favorite president. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife Erica and family. Charlie, we love you.
United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife Erica and family. Charlie, we love you. In the House, a moment of silence.
I'm just going to state the obvious here. This is detestable, what's happened. Political violence has become all too common in American society, and this is not who we are. Political violence must be called out, and it has to stop.
The university says the gunman fired from a building 200 yards away. FBI Director Kash Patel saying they have a subject for the horrific shooting in custody, while Utah's governor described a person of interest.
That didn't last.
We have a person of interest in custody that is being interviewed right now.
Yeah, they both got released.
We have on the suspect, the possible shooter, is taken from closed-circuit TV here on campus. We do have that. We're analyzing it. But it is security camera footage, so you can kind of guess what the quality of that is. But we do know dressed in all dark clothing, but we don't have much better description.
But late tonight, the FBI director posting that person of interest has now been released. So many witnesses saying they saw no security at the event before the assassination.
There was no checkpoints, nothing to get in here. Everyone was just able to walk in here. I'm like, I have my backpack. I'm like, if I wanted to, I could just bring a gun with me.
Charlie Kirk, survived by his wife and
I'd call that person a person of interest.
2 young children. His organization, Turning Point USA, asking that everyone keep his family and loved ones in their prayers.
All right, Liz joins us now live. Liz, there in your report, you were talking about.
So, and again, it's horrific to see, but I guess it's not 100% unexpected either at this point. I was surprised it was Kirk. I'm going to be completely honest about the fact that I'm surprised it was him. Because he's a big name. He's a big enough name that he got made fun of on South Park. Pam and I actually just watched that episode, and it was the first time I had seen it. The night before this happened. We were sitting up feeding the baby in bed, and that episode came on. So we watched that the night before all this, 12 hours before this happened. We were watching that. And it just... I would have thought it would have been Knowles first. Maybe Fuentes. Maybe Benny Boy. I did not think it was going to be Kirk. But there again, the other end of that, and some of the things that I said when I was making my decision to continue to do this kind of thing, had to do with the fact that Benny Boy, Fuentes, people like that have round-the-clock billion-dollar security attaches. Even Tim Pool, round-the-clock billion-dollar security attaches. Whereas Kirk, I know he makes a lot of people mad because of the things that he says in his debates, but I don't think that, well, before yesterday, I didn't think he was really that deep on anybody's radar. There are people that are saying that it's because of the South Park episode. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But other than that, no, I didn't think that this would be a thing. I don't like Charlie Kirk. But still, I don't think that somebody like that deserves something like this. AP with the live updater. So I'm going to skip over this one here. But they're saying... right out the back, Charlie Kirk assassinated at university event in Utah. Let's grab this one from the Associated Press, though. Graphic video of Kirk's shooting was everywhere online, showing how media gatekeeper role has changed. Media gatekeeper role has not been a thing for much, much longer than even I've had a webcam. There's been an embed function in every piece of media I've written on, and I have been writing about politics since 2013. 2012, I'm sorry. I've been writing about politics since 2012. There's always been an embed feature. The media's grip on what it is that you can and cannot see has been gone for a long time. You know what else made the media's grip on what you can and can't see out in the world? This thing, right here. Everybody's got one of these in their pocket. Do you really think that they could have censored that for... Real thought, real talk, and maybe a thought experiment here on this. How many different videos, and with that, how many conspiracy theories do you think would have been debunked? Or confirmed, for that matter? If everybody had one of these when JFK took his last ride in Dallas. The Warren Report, I think, would have looked a lot differently at that point. From David Bowder. They were careful with the explicit imagery, as usual, but does it make any difference? Nope. Not anymore. Traditional news organizations were cautious in their mid-afternoon coverage of Kirk's assassination Wednesday, not to depict the moment he was shot, instead showing video of him tossing a hat to his audience moments before and panicked onlookers scattering wildly in the moments after. In practical terms, though, it mattered a little. Gory video of the shooting was available almost instantly online from several angles in slow motion, real-time speed, in a way that would make the NFL blush. I mean, the amount of ways that we saw this thing, you could almost see John Madden with his little yellow pen scribbling all over the screen. Vong, John Madden used to be a NFL commentator before you were born. Sorry, I had to bring that up for the Zoomers in the audience here. He's the guy that all the NFL games on all the video game platforms are named after. Video was easy to find on X, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube, even on Truth Social. Where Trump posted the official word of the conservative activist's death, it illustrated how the gatekeeping role of news organizations has changed in the area of social media. Kirk was shot at a public event before hundreds of people at a Utah college campus, many of them holding up phones, to record a celebrity in their midst and savvy about how to disseminate the video evidence of a news event. On X, there was a video showing direct view of Kirk being shot, his body recoiling, and blood gushing from the wound. Again, that is in the Discord if you want to see it. One video was a loop showing the moment of impact in slow motion, stopping before blood is seen. Another, taken from Kirk's left, included audio that suggested Kirk was talking about gun violence at the moment he was shot. Yes, he was, by the way, ironically. For more than 150 years, news organizations, like newspapers and television networks, have long been accustomed to gatekeeping when it comes to explicit content, making editorial decisions around violent events to decide what images and words appear on their platforms for their readers or viewers. But in the fragmented era of social media, smartphones, and instant video uploads, editorial decisions by legacy media are less impactful than ever. Side note, who finds the irony in the Associated Press calling it the legacy media? The Associated Press being the most legacy of the legacy media that ever was. The Associated Press is the legacy of the legacy media. They're so legacy. Decca says, is it too soon to say Trump could have said that he was dead, just like our country was 1 year ago, according to statements by UAE leaders? Probably, yes. Back when I was talking about Knowles and everything, Bong said, or Walsh. Yeah, Walsh I think would be a decent target for that as well. So, yeah, it's out there if you want to see it. It's bad. What else do we have? So, one of the big reactions before we go on into some of the mainstream media things, and MSNBC or MS Now or whatever the hell they call it, has been just ripped up and down for what they did with this yesterday. Rightfully so, by the way, honestly. But a lot of people wanted to come back in and talk about Melissa Hortman, the former Minnesota House Speaker, and what happened to her. And it's interesting to me how the narrative control and the legacy media narrative control behind that entire situation actually made that happen. Because a lot of these people, like Vix here, are complaining about the fact that as soon as the moment that this became, well, they found out it's a Trump supporter, so they buried it out of the news and nobody talked about it anymore. No, that wasn't actually what happened. I remember that very, very, very distinctly. And no, it wasn't over the fact that it was the fact that the guy was a Trump supporter. In fact, that was amplifying the news when people thought that this was a Trump supporter that was going around and doing this on the day that they were doing these media protests. When in reality, what actually happened with that is there's the allegation, and I'm only going to speak on the fact that this allegation exists because I never myself confirmed that it was true. If you want to confirm that it's true, obviously go out, do your research, present your case. I have never confirmed that this was true, but this was the moment that this disappeared, which gives me at least some suspicion that it might actually have been true, was the fact that we all found out, allegedly, that this person was doing this under orders from Tim Walz, with also the instructions to get Amy Klobuchar out of the way because Walz was going to go back and run for her seat in the Senate. Whether or not that's true, again, we have never had a moment's confirmation of the truth behind this. If you have proof of this, I'd be interested to see. 100%. But for right now, we hold the prevailing narrative and just accept the fact that as soon as that news came out, the entire story disappeared from the media faster than Nick Cannon does when a paternity test pops up. But Vix here says violence is never condoned. This, however, is a friendly reminder that Melissa Hortman, a seated Democrat, was tragically killed alongside her husband and dog just a few months ago. It was a targeted attack at her home by a Trump supporter, allegedly. The story was swept under the rug. And yes, it's just been a constant onslaught of Melissa Hortman, Melissa Hortman, Melissa Hortman, Melissa Hortman. NPR article here on a post on social media. Trump condemned the shootings in Minnesota, saying that such horrific violence will not be tolerated in the United States, kind of shattering the narrative of, well, nobody said anything. All right. We've got one on the New York Times, a former newspaper. A lot of blood. Witnesses describe the Charlie Kirk shooting. We'll do this one briefly because most of this will be answered by the video that's in the Discord. Mark Walker and Anushka Patil. Andrew Piscadillo was standing in the middle of a campus amphitheater on Wednesday waiting to debate Kirk about the 8th Amendment when a single shot rang out. Why the 8th Amendment? Why are we debating excessive fines and bail? It was surprising. No one really got down until the people in the front of the stage did. Mr. Piscadlo of Salt Lake City said in a phone interview, people got down in waves. He had been in line at a campus event at the Utah Valley University waiting to speak and debate Mr. Kirk, as students typically do in Prove Me Wrong debates that Mr. Kirk, a right-wing activist, would host. Mr. Piscadlo, who estimated he was about 80 feet away, recalled Mr. Kirk had been responding to a question about transgender mass shooting suspects before he was shot. When the shot rang out, Mr. Piscadlo said he had dropped first, but did not run. He said he did not see Mr. Kirk get shot, but he estimated the shooting occurred shortly after the program began, shortly after noon local time. Brandon Russin, a 24-year-old student at Ensign College in Salt Lake City, said he was near the front row of the crowd, about 20 feet from Mr. Kirk. I just saw Charlie kind of slump backwards, and I saw it was very graphic. I saw a lot of blood, and then everyone around me just fell to the ground trying to take cover, Mr. Russin said. He described the split second of confusion. Mr. Kirk was being asked about mass shootings at the time, and for a brief moment, Mr. Russin wondered whether the shooting was a part of an act. That's kind of dark. But it's also the kind of thing I would actually expect from people like that. Not gonna lie. That lasted only about a second before I realized it was something very serious going on, he said. Fearing that more shots could be fired, Mr. Russin said he stayed crouched on the ground for about a minute as people screamed and ran around him. He said that he texted his wife to tell her what was happening and that he loved her, then grabbed his friend who was next to him and ran for a nearby building. Mr. Russin said he was still shaken up by the event and felt grateful to be alive, as anybody who's been anywhere near something like that can imagine that you would. He recalled that before it started, he had turned to his friend and said the courtyard venue was not ideal for someone who is a divisive public figure. Mr. Piscadlo said the setup of the amphitheater struck him as unsafe before the event. Why the hell would you go? Despite a heavy security presence, he noticed there were a lot of ledges, points where this could happen. He said this seemed really preventable. I'm kind of angry at the organizers. Vaughn can attest to this, by the way, because he was with me at the only Trump rally that I've been to in my life. Where, yes, you do take your security into account when you come back and look at how, because he was there with me when the Donald gave his speech. Actually, I got a channel strike for that. For election denialism, for recording and streaming a Trump speech. But yes, the amount of security and the amount of preparation that Secret Service did in order to get Mr. Trump there. And then you just look around in a place like that and say, hey, anybody could do anything from anywhere here. Zachary Morris, who attended the event with his 3-year-old daughter, described confusion and mass panic in the crowd when the shot was fired. I reached down, I grabbed my daughter and my phone and began to run, said Mr. Morris, a registered nurse who lives in Leahy, Utah. He took cover in the Sorensen Student Center, but there, people were yelling for everyone to evacuate the building. All I could think was that I got to get my daughter out of here, said Morris, who eventually exited safely with his daughter. One more. Isaac Davis, a junior at Utah Valley University, said the shot fired wasn't that loud. He added, it was definitely noticeable, but it was almost like a firecracker. He said he believed the shooter was not in the crowd, which was also correct, according to what it is that they're saying. Oh, I guess that is only one more because that's the last one. Mr. Davis said the scene devolved into hysteria after the shot, and he and several others were pushed indoors and into a classroom to hide. I just didn't want to be in the building while everything was going on, so I ran out of it, he said. So it is chaotic indeed. Let's see. That's a live updater. That's not the story that I wanted. But yes, there's been a major outcry over the political violence in and of itself, but also the reaction from the right. Now, I said, and we'll go to my profile and look at this as well, but I can't believe I'm actually sitting in a point where I agree with Midas Touch. Because they're paid propagandists, and the vast majority of what they do is lie. But a broken clock is right twice a day, and they're absolutely right on this one here. Deeply disturbing rhetoric is spreading from influential MAGA figures, including the president and the owner of this website. They have no idea who the shooter is, and many of these same people mock Democrats when they were the victims of political violence in the past. In moments like this, we should be lowering the temperature and finding our shared humanity, not fueling more hatred and violence. And, well, I'm just going to make the reminder here that if this had turned out to be, well, no, if we had a confirmed MAGA shooter and it was somebody going after a left-wing a left-wing figure, then no, Midas Touch would be ramping up the same rhetoric. I'm only agreeing with them because they're right on this particular instance, knowing full well that if this was reversed, or as my friend Midget B likes to hate on, if the shoe were on the other foot, then yes, they would be calling for war. But yeah, lives at TikTok, this is war. Elon Musk, the leftist party murderer. Eagleman, they've declared war. Davis, Democrat Party's a domestic terrorist organization. Yeah, let's not do any of this here currently. Prepare yourself to defend yourself, absolutely. That's what I did when I found out about it. But I did not, for any reason whatsoever, say, hey, let's go back and strike one of theirs. Do you know why? Because that's a stupid thing to do. In fact, there are a bunch of people who are coming out here and telling you to go back and do exactly that. Go take up arms because of what they did to Charlie Kirk. That's the part that's going to get clipped, by the way, and put on Right Wing Watch if I ever get famous enough to be on Right Wing Watch. The fact that I just said that is going to be the first thing that came up here. But let's just look at some of the things that I've been saying here. Thanks to Arvel for that, by the way. The Damned Man says, it's a good thing those guys have double standards, otherwise they wouldn't have any standards at all. Also, hello, is the States on fire today? DM Ryan is also here. Welcome, both of you. Are you a first-time chatter? Are you new here? No, Damned Man has been here before. I don't have a first-time chat alert for that one either. So welcome. Welcome in. We're just talking about the Charlie Kirk shooting right now. I thought that was funny. Trump Tracker replying to Barack Obama saying that we need his leadership and not the excuse of a man in the White House, while still having, and to this day, having 8647 as the profile picture. But that's not the X that I want. Yeah, this one here, and this one as well. Tony, not he, I'm him, who created his X profile in July of this year, replying to Isabella DeLuca, saying, it only ends when conservatives start using violence against lefties, shooting up their public gatherings, beating up random blacks and Hispanics, do to them what they do to us. Which I quote tweeted and said, fed, 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 fed. Excuse me. Yeah, that is 100% a Fed post right there. And then I tweeted out after I saw that and quote tweeted that and saying, this should go without saying, and it should, by the way. Any of you who watch this channel especially should be smart enough to understand the fact that anyone who's telling you to take up arms in the wake of the Charlie Kirk shooting is a Fed. 100%. Anybody who's telling you to take up arms right now wants to foment something either to get you in prison or to show the world this is what dangerous right-wing media is, or wants to foment the war. So no. Again, my position is fairly consistent and always has been. Hoe in another row in your garden. If you don't have a garden yet, start a garden, even if it's a milk jug garden because you're renting. But hoe in another row in your garden. Arm yourself up. Do not take it away from and take it out in malice, but arm yourself up for just in case. In case somebody comes to your door intending harm to you. Get some more fresh water, drop another vice, and learn a new skill. But nothing will be accomplished by running out and trying to start the war, except for the fact that you'll be sitting in an FBI interrogation room. And you'll lose your right to vote. That's the only thing you'll accomplish. I hate to tell you that. Alright. From ABC News, high-powered rifle recovered amid manhunt for Charlie Kirk's killer, per the FBI. The FBI said it recovered what believed to be the weapon used in the shooting of Charlie Kirk. A high-powered bolt-action rifle, which is, of course, going to shoot in the foot the narrative of Muscari AR platform rifle. Now, you can chamber an AR rifle in 7.62, add a long barrel to it and have a decent scope on it, but it's still, especially with its semi-automatic platform, not going to have the same accuracy and ability as a regular bolt-action Browning. which officials believe was the weapon used in the shooting, was recovered in a wooded area near the shooting, where the shooting took place, per Salt Lake City FBI Special Agent Robert Bowles. The manhunt for the student, who's believed to be a college age, continues with the officials working around the clock to locate the individual, officials said during this press conference on Thursday. I really don't know that they're going to find him, and I know that I had to call somebody out in the Discord on that, because the way that it was worded could have been taken as glorifying violence, and I try not to jump to that when I can avoid it. But in that particular situation, with this being such a huge news story, I mean, people are going to be combing through Discords looking for excuses to shut down, quote, right-wing extremism. More right-wing extremism. But I do, because this is my platform, and I will contend with YouTube censors, I do think that there's a possibility that this gets lost on Pam Bondi's desk. I do agree with you, Putz. I just, with everything going on, I don't want that posted in the Discord. The FBI asked for tips from the public as the manhunt for the perpetrator continues, urging anyone with information, photos, or video from the incident to share with investigators. Officials said they have been able to track down movements of the shooter and have good video footage of the individual, the Utah Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bo Mason said on Thursday. The video footage will be released to the public at this time, or will not be, rather, released to the public at this time, Mason said. At 11:52 a.m. local time, which I believe Utah's on Mountain Time, so that will be 12:52 p.m. Wisconsin time, the suspect arrived on campus, then proceeded to travel through the stairwells up to the roof of a building near where the event was taking place, before the suspect fired down at Kirk, Mason said. After the shooting, the suspect traveled to the other side of the building, jumped off, and fled off campus into a neighborhood. Mason said officials are working through nearby neighborhoods, contacting people with the doorbell cameras, and speaking to witnesses to identify any leads, Mason said. I got this feeling that was already taken care of before the guy got out there. Along with recovering the weapon, Bowles said investigators have also collected a footwear impression, palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis. Kash Patel said in an earlier the agency stands in full support of the ongoing response and investigation. So, they found the gun. Dude's still at large. What else do we have? I'm going to skip the what we know just because we've had enough. Some of the response at this point. From the president first, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Let's listen.
Before we begin, let me express the horror and grief so many Americans at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk have felt. Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. Fantastic people they are. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd. Very, very big.
Very big. The greatest crowd. The biggest crowd. Nobody's going to have crowds like this. Too soon? Unfortunately, I don't think the Presidential Medal of Freedom means all that much, and I think it is, unfortunately, very, very partisan. at this point because, I mean, Biden gave Soros the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I really did feel the cheapening of it. Again, coming from somebody who liked Rush. But I felt it was cheapened when Limbaugh got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Sorry. Because that's all that he did was partisan politics. Eric Doherty, MSDNC anchor, calls Charlie Kirk divisive and polarizing after he was shot. Per Doherty, this is perhaps the most disgusting response to a political act of violence I've ever seen on cable TV ever. No. There are more from the same network that got even worse. This doesn't even crack the top 10, but we'll still watch it.
Yeah, we're showing, by the way, our affiliate in Utah and the aftermath of this shooting. You could see people running away pretty quickly, as you would imagine they would do at gunshots. The FBI director, Kash Patel, has weighed in on this. He just tweeted the following: "We're closely monitoring reports of the tragic shooting involving Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. Our thoughts are with Charlie, his loved ones, and everyone affected. Agents will be on the scene quickly, and the FBI stands in full support of the ongoing response and the investigation." Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast. He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016. And his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign. And he has kind of ridden along with MAGA since 2016 and built up a massive, massive brand of his own. His group has brought in tons and tons of money.
There are a few things that are wrong with MSNBC's statement, but of course the big one is yes, they're stopping just short of saying that he brought this on himself. Again, no fan of Kirk. I'll be completely open with it right now. The body's cold at this point, and I'll tell you exactly what I thought of Kirk, which I've been open about this on this channel from the begin with. And whatever I'm about to say here in front of me, again, does not condone the fact that somebody else decided that they wanted to commit this violence against him, because nobody deserves that. I would have rather debated Kirk out of his Bush-level position of foreign policy, domestic policy, and enforcement of Christianity at gunpoint. I'd have rather debated him out of that than see something like this happen to the man. I would have loved to debate him out of that, because I think I could have made a point to him. Now, of course, he gets paid to continue to hold on to his beliefs, but yeah, I always complain about after the populist movement, after Trump is termed out, and we no longer have the populist Republicans who just want to focus on domestic policy and the working class as much as it is, and not go back and do foreign policy and war every day and put a war on a credit card and things like that. Kirk was from the Bush wing of the Republican Party. He and I had a lot of disagreements. And I love the fact that MSNBC just comes back and tries to tie him to Trump, because Trump is their most hated figure, because then they can come back and basically say that he deserved this, which they've been doing all day. In fact, Dowd got fired over it. I've got that article on here too. Breaking 911 with another clip. MSNBC suggests the man who shot Kirk was a supporter shooting off a gun in celebration. We also know that that is no longer the truth, because you don't make a shot in celebration that accurately at that distance, 200 yards out. Let's watch.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, to emphasize what you just emphasized, we don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration.
But things like that also start the narrative out there, because then all the supporters stop looking at who did this and start saying, oh, well, it's just another MAGA person being stupid. Katie Tur. You can imagine the Trump admin's going to use this as a justification for something. That's been another one of the major talking points that's been going out. Oh, if you're trans, well, you better go into hiding at this point because they're going to use this to come after you. I will be standing in your support if they actually do that. Not that I believe that they're going to. Oh, it's not safe to be gay anymore. The big bad conservatives are going to use this to go start the Civil War and come and strip you of your rights or this or that, the next thing.
After one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
What? What are they going to use it for? Come on, tell me, Katie Tur. Somebody commented, reap what you sow. Matthew sure did. And that's actually the next video clip that we have. The Calvin Coolidge Project.
Talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, emphasize what you...
Okay, back up and pause, damn it. The Calvin Coolidge Project, named for my favorite president in history, just in. Matthew Dowd is now blaming Charlie Kirk's politics for him getting shot. Hateful words lead to hateful actions. You can't stop with these sorts of awful thoughts and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place. Matthew Dowd, just how short was his skirt?
Talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about this. But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this.
Yeah, Matt, how short was Charlie Kirk's skirt? Goats and Scarves is giving us spoilers for the next article. The Variety one that you can see up on the screen right there. But since he's doing it, let's just bring it up. From Variety, a source that I don't usually use here. Matthew Dowd fired from MSNBC for Charlie Kirk comments, from Jack Dunn. Political analyst. You mean op-ed writer. Matthew Dowd has been fired from MSNBC after his comments about the death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, according to network source. During MSDNC's coverage of the Kirk shooting, anchor Katie Tur asked Dowd what the environment in which a shooting like this happens. Dowd responded with the following about Kirk. He's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that this is the environment we are in. You can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts. You have them and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place. And that's the unfortunate environment that we are in. And I quote, "The remarks sparked outrage across social media, and MSDNC President Rebecca Cutler issued a rare apology in response. She slammed Dowd's comments as inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable." You're not sorry that it happened, Rebecca Cutler, and I have watched the programming on your network. Number one, that is relatively mild compared to some of the things that have been said on there. But number two, you're not sorry it happened, you're sorry you got caught. Plain and simple. "We apologize for his statements, as has he," Cutler said in a statement shared to the MSDNC Public Relations X account. "There is no place for violence in America, political or otherwise." Dowd issued his own apology for his commentary on his Blue Sky account. He wrote, "I apologize for my tone and words. Let me be clear. I in no way intended for my comments to blame Kurt for his horrendous attack. Let us all come together and condemn violence of any kind. You're not sorry that it happened. You're sorry you got caught." And yes, he is out. He's gone. Now, the next person's going to say the exact same thing. They're just going to hope that no evil conservatives are watching. This has been a divisive one for me inside of my own mind. Again, we talked about this at the top of the program because Pom and I watched this particular episode the day before. On the 9th, we watched this one. I hadn't seen it. I just basically hadn't had a chance to watch South Park. But I saw the Trump and the demon ones, and I looked up what a labubu was. That's a scary idea. By the way, I'm not going to be one of these, quote, conservative commentators, even though I've never been a conservative in my life, that says, well, don't watch South Park because they made fun of evil Donald Trump, or Donald Trump this, or Donald Trump that, or because they wouldn't call back out Biden or Kamala, or you know, those things that those morons out there that wear the red hats say. You should watch it. It's hilarious. And Kirk leaned into this. But Lucky Teeter came out and said Trey Parker and Matt Stone have blood on their hands. No, they don't, by the way. Remove South Park from all streaming services. Why? Charlie was cracking up about it. He leaned into this entire thing. He wasn't offended by this. And there was nothing in this that would have come out and made a subliminal message to say, go shoot Charlie Kirk at UVU. There's no reason for this. If you don't like it, turn the dial. Don't watch. I thought it was hilarious. And hell, Kirk had the Cartman Kirk as his ex-profile picture for like 2 weeks. And Teeter actually did go in and try to double down on this whole thing. It's worth noting South Park depicted Kirk as Cartman, a universally despised character who even the teachers attempted to kill. And then, Trey Parker and Matt Stone are also hypocritical frauds who removed the episodes mocking Muhammad but have no issue consistently blaspheming Jesus Christ. I don't know. I feel like it's a badge of honor to be made fun of by South Park. The only thing that I took away from the controversy from this episode a few weeks ago is hey, exactly how scared are you of the DNC? Because, like, you won't go anywhere close to them. Partially because, yes, if you make fun of Charlie Kirk, then a few people wearing red hats are going to be really, really mad at you. If you make fun of an acolyte of Barack Obama or Kamala Harris, the same people who are celebrating Charlie Kirk getting shot will be standing outside of your door with pitchforks and torches and protesting you and making sure, they'll actually be making sure that you get pulled off the air. So no, it is freedom of speech. If you don't like it, don't watch. And no, they absolutely 100% did not inspire this. So you can F straight the F off with that. There was apparently a fight during a vigil, but they didn't show the fight. I was looking for more coverage on that. All I saw was a little blurb in X at the time. But yeah, that's Charlie Kirk. That's what happened with this. It's a terrible thing. Like I said, I did not agree with Charlie Kirk's position on a lot of things. Because I've never been a culture war conservative. That is a strong position in the culture war conservatism that I just can't be bothered with. I don't care. If you want to get banged in the butt until you're bleeding out all over the place, that's your business. I don't care. If you want to chop off your stuff down here or up here, leave the kids out of it, please. But I don't care otherwise. I don't think it's going to make you happy, but that's between you and your surgeon. Charlie Kirk was deep in the culture war conservatism side of this. I am more of a fiscal conservative myself. Part of the reason I typically do not agree with Donald Trump, because that man sees an open checkbook and says, "How many checks can I write?" But no matter how much I disagree with Charlie Kirk, nobody deserves this. Mrs. Kirk doesn't deserve this. The kids don't deserve this. And yes, the person who did it, I hope that they catch him. I hope that he gets prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I do. All right, speaking of shootings. From CPS News, 2 students wounded in shooting at Evergreen High School in Colorado. Suspect is dead, officials say. This is an update because as of last night, when we were ironically talking to my older daughter about, they had they called it an intruder drill. It was an active shooter drill. So we were talking about that, and then I brought up the fact that this had happened as well earlier on in the day. At that time, the shooter was still alive. He had not passed. He has passed at this point. So, authorities said a boy who opened fire with a handgun on Wednesday at a high school near Denver, wounding 2 students before fatally shooting himself. The shooting occurred just before 12:30 p.m. local time at Evergreen High School in Colorado Foothills, about 28 miles southwest of Denver. According to Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, the suspect was believed to be a student at the school. Jackie Kelly, a Sheriff's Office spokesperson, said in a news briefing his identity has not been released, most likely because he is a minor and also partially probably because, well, he probably doesn't fit certain descriptions. This is one where I'm going to be interested to see if the identity comes out or not. Or the motive, or a manifesto. Kelly said deputies responded to numerous 911 calls, making contact with the shooter within 5 minutes. She said no law enforcement officers fired any weapons, however. The first on the scene, they were at the school, were pretty quick to find our suspect, Kelly said. A preliminary investigation revealed the shooting took place inside and outside the school building, Kelly said, adding, the suspect used a handgun and numerous students witnessed the shooting. The suspect sustained a self-inflicted gunshot wound, the sheriff's office later confirmed on social media. By the way, this is going to disappear fairly quickly. Suspect used a handgun is typically the indicator that this is not going to be a thing. It's only when the suspect uses a high-powered rifle and espouses far right views. Also, a suspect has to be over 18 because in order for this to become a major national story and a major national debate, firearm has to be purchased legally. Even if the student was over 18, his name could be released. According to federal law, a handgun cannot be purchased legally by someone under the age of 21. And he would have to have been held back a few times in order for that to happen. Hundreds of law enforcement officers from across the Denver metro area responded to help. Kelly said they formed multiple teams, and after the initial chaos, they cleared the school room by room. The scene was declared safe after that. Jefferson County Schools set up a reunification center for parents and guardians at Bergen Meadow Elementary School. By nightfall, the center had closed, and the sheriff's office stated on social media, if you're a parent that has still not located your child, please call JeffCom at 911 at 303-980-7300. By the way, if you still have not located your child, still call that number, but it's been 24 hours, so you're not going to be in that situation, I don't think, for very long. Reunification, I don't know if it went really well. It was bumpy because after the shots were fired, we had kids running in every direction, to the library, to the substation, to a couple different schools, Kelly said. One of the biggest concerns was making sure that these students get back with their families, said Reggie Marinelli. And so that reunification was huge to us, as many of you, I'm sure, experienced getting up here with the road conditions, with all the first responders getting up here. It got a little congested, but we made it work because of all the preparation and that training that we've been doing for many years. I want to talk about the phenomenon that's happening with this. And again, my prediction that this is going to go away. Now, we've already had our left-wing activist friends come out and say that it's the guns, it's the gun violence, it's the this, it's the that, it's the next thing. And I understand and I respect the position that you're coming from with that when you say things like that. And, excuse me, I did too much Trump voice, so I have a rasp in my throat at this point. I understand the position and the knee-jerk reaction to do the guns. It's been telling, of course, again, that this was brought up and said that it was the guns with a lot of the details out there, because the people in the news media, the people in Jackson County know who this shooter was, probably know the motive, probably know everything else off of this. But one of the things that I hate when it comes to shootings like this is the fact that, yes, this is going to get swept under the rug. Not shot under the rug. That would be an ironic twist of things, but this is a shooting that is going to get swept under the rug. Bookmark this tweet, especially with the proximity to Charlie Kirk, but even still, this would have been a, maybe 1 or 2 day news story. Tops. We're never going to know the suspect's name. We're never going to know the situations, because either the student did not fit a certain socioeconomic stereotype that the news media wants to do, and furthermore, again, the most important part is when you see a, quote, mass shooting like this, that they want to come back and publicize. It has to do with the weapon and the fact that it was legally obtained. When you have an illegally obtained firearm, I mean, just look at the psychopath in Michigan. Do you even remember his name? Illegally obtained firearm, handguns, and shotgun to a 15-year-old. We don't know the kid's name. Legally obtained firearm. We get Uvalde, we get Parkland. because those suspects were over 18 and found ways to gather up money that no 18-year-old has to buy insanely high-end rifles. That Daniel Defense rifle is like a $6,000 rifle with all the accessories that were with it. But going back to the reason that I hate the fact that this is going to disappear out of the news, and again, mark my words, this is going to disappear out of the news, is the fact that we can't sit back and address what actually happened to cause this, because we don't know anything about it. We can't address it as a society. The big concern is going and addressing scary black rifles. Well, I go back to this, and I go back to what I started my channel with, my brother, and the fact that he was bullied to within, to the point that he sat back and screamed expletives at a teacher as he was getting drug off down the hall. With the allegation and the accusation coming later on that, oh, well, I heard that, I'm not going to say his real name online, that Nugget was going to come back and shoot up the school. That was my name for him. That's not what the bullies said, but that was my name for him. And we can't sit back and address the fact that he was bullied to the point that people actually thought that that was going to happen, even though I know for a fact, I know him, I know his parents, and I know the lifestyle in the household that he grew up in. That no, those words did not pass his lips. But the fact that the thought was even there and was believable was the fact that he'd been bullied basically from the moment that he joined our school district. One or two school districts consolidated, and it was relentless up until that point in the 10th grade. So for 7 years, relentless over and over again. You have that. I don't know if that's what happened with this kid either, because we don't know anything about the kid. So we can't come back and address the root cause. We just say, oh, illegally obtained firearms, so it goes into statistics as a school shooting and as a mass shooting, and we don't talk about it anymore. End of story. I'd be willing to bet, especially with what Jeep just said. Jeep XLC joining us over on the Twitch side. Jeffco is the rich liberal suburbs outside of Denver. The whole county is full of Karens and homeowners associations, and have the typical NIMBY political views. We'll never know the details, probably, because I'd bet money that homie was bullied at that point. And it was reactionary. It was the wrong reaction, but it was reactionary. And then to have a national conversation about this would mean having a national conversation about bullying in this country, which is not a taboo topic right now. But speaking of that, I wanted to talk about this story, which, oddly enough, I think in this story, the Donald actually found a way to make our left-wing friends full-throated advocates of the Second Amendment. Figure that one out. From CNN, Trump DOJ is looking at ways to ban transgender Americans from owning guns, sources say. Let me pull my axe fingers out. No. No. Bad. No. Wrong. 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 No. Bad. If you can take it away from one class of people, you can take it away from all classes of people, and the government does not get that kind of power. This is why I did not vote for Trump and why instead I voted against Kamala, by the way. Just a reminder on that. Yes, technically I filled the bumble that was next to Donald Trump in the ballot, but it was a vote against Kamala. It was not a positive vote. Because he does stuff like this. From Evan Perez and Hannah Rabinovitz. In the wake of the Minneapolis Catholic Church shooting, senior Justice Department officials are weighing proposals to limit transgender people's rights to possess firearms, according to two officials familiar with the internal discussions. I remember somebody in the wake of the Minneapolis shooting have brought up the idea of, well, would you support a mental test to purchase a firearm? Which, under a normal circumstance, I actually would. I know that sets me apart from some of my libertarian friends. I would. The problem that I have with any sort of mental test is who's the proctor of the test? Who gets to decide whether you're mentally ill or not mentally ill? I'm not against the idea of trying to keep people who are nutty that would do something like this, who we can see would do something like this in the future, keeping a gun out of their hands. The problem being, once you give the government this sort of ability to give the mental health test for something like this, you give them the ability to look down the test and say, oh, you voted for politician X, politician Y, politician Z. Oh, you're mentally ill. Sorry, no guns for you. It's the same thing with free speech. I think hate speech is abhorrent. And I think it should be stopped. But you run into the issue of who decides. Who's making the decision on what's hate speech and what isn't. And then the people get into power that you don't like and they say, well, you're in full-throated support of toning down federal government in the wake of having some of the slack brought up by the states. Hey, that's hate speech. You go to prison for hate speech. The talks, described as preliminary in nature, appear to build on an idea that has gained some currency in conservative media since the... No, that's not conservative media. That's reactionary mega media that used to be left-wing until the progressive movement betrayed the left wing. That is not conservative media. You would have to be conservative in order for it to be conservative media. Since the Minneapolis shooting that killed 2 children and injured 21, most of them children, at Annunciation Catholic Church, an attack that police say was carried out by a 23-year-old transgender woman. Such a move would represent a dramatic escalation of the Trump admin's fight against the rights of transgender Americans. Holy shit. He did it. I was joking when I said he was going to get the mainstream media and the left wing of politics to come out in full-throated support of the Second Amendment. It's right there in black and white on the screen. Such a move would represent a dramatic escalation of the Trump admin's fight against the rights of transgender Americans. Oh my God, he did it. That's amazing. Trump has issued a series of executive orders on the topic, including one barring transgender people from serving in the military. That I agree with and I disagree with both at the same time. I do think that the military should be selective to a point of trying to keep America's fighting force big, but also again, or I'm sorry, not big, but strong and effective at what it is that they do, but also when you do the broad brush thing, then people who are actually qualified, who are actually skilled at what they do, lose out on the ability to be effective. You might have the world's deadliest sniper out there, and he might like to go dress up in dresses and go sit to pee, but he's still one of the deadliest snipers out there. Because yes, there is a level of physical strength that is required for military service. I understand that, but the other side of that is that's not always the way to do so. I hate broad brush policy. I've been an individualist for my entire life. In addition, the idea of restricting gun rights has been a red line for conservatives, with many Republican lawmakers and gun rights groups opposing red flag laws and other policies aimed at keeping guns away from people suffering from mental health issues. Again, the issue with the red flag law, it's not the keeping the guns out of the hands of people suffering mental health issues, it's who decides what's a mental health issue. But the DOJ leadership is seriously considering whether it can use its rulemaking authority to follow on to Trump's determination to bar military service by transgender people and declare that people who are transgender are mentally ill and can lose their Second Amendment rights to possess firearms, per a DOJ official. No. Bad. 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 That is wrong. Another DOJ official cautioned that any such proposal, should it gain steam, would likely run into legal complications. Millions of Americans have mental health issues and many take medications, but are not a danger to society and therefore cannot have their rights infringed upon. Again, the problem that I have with this, it's not the fact that I think, like Arvold had actually said, Arvold believes, I actually don't believe this, but I think that there's something going on, but it's not to the point of throw them all in the loony bin, but Arvold says trans are all mental health sufferers, they shouldn't be given weapons. Again, it's that broad brush thing that I don't care for. I mean, you could literally come out and say that anybody who has ADHD or has been diagnosed with ADHD is a mental health sufferer because they have to take medication for that. And that would bar a lot of people that I like to go shooting with from being able to own a firearm. Federal law requires a judge to declare a person to be mentally defective for being stripped of their right to own firearms. I like that in the context of this because it does give the chance to go individually instead of being a broad brush. Because admittedly, I do think some of the people who are going down that path are doing so for a larger mental health issue, but I don't think it's all of them. All right, let's talk about the drug boat. Speaking of things that I disagree with Donald Trump on, of which there are many. There are many, many things like that. Trump's strike on an alleged Venezuelan drug boat raises questions about his use of military power. From Lisa Mascaro. Within a week of Trump's election, Lindsey Graham, we haven't talked about him for a while, counseled the president-elect to quickly send a message to the drug cartels from the White House. None of that surprised me. None of that surprises me. Blow something up, Graham told Trump. The brazen military strike on a suspected drug smuggling speedboat carrying 11 people from Venezuela this month is just what the South Carolina senator had in mind. No surprises there. But it has cleaved fresh divisions within the Republican Party over Trump's campaign promise to keep the U.S. out of foreign entanglements and the reality of a commander-in-chief whose America First agenda is pursuing a tougher military stance. And it's raising stark questions about just how far Trump intends to wield his presidential power over the U.S. military without a robust check on the executive branch from Congress. Already, Trump has dropped a 30,000-pound bombs on Iran's nuclear sites without any new authorizations from Capitol Hill. He deployed the military to Los Angeles over the objections of California's Democratic governor and wants the National Guard in other cities too. I do believe, and we'll be talking about that later, that is more for defending immigration than actually cracking down on crime, because the only place that he can legally use the military as a police force is at D.C. because it's a federal district. Trump's allies pressured senators confirmed Pete Hegseth as defense secretary, despite objections to his past behavior and skepticism of warrior culture at the Pentagon. And last week, Trump rebranded the Department of Defense as the Department of War, which technically he can't do because that requires an act of Congress. I don't care whether it's a Republican president or a Democrat president, said Rand Paul of Kentucky, once a Trump rival for the White House. We can't just want to kill people without having some kind of process. We're just going to blow up ships? That isn't who we are, Paul said. So a little bit of backstory on this, because we didn't get to this last week, because my stream was having major heart attack issues. We got that fixed, by the way, and we actually got the internet rerouted so that it's in the office and Pom and I can have hardwire to our computers and still have Wi-Fi everywhere else around the house. That's kind of nice, by the way. The Trump admin, the president himself, has said the lethal strike on the vessel from the Venezuela was intended to make clear the U.S. would not tolerate drugs being shipped into this country. They said those killed in the boat from the Caribbean included members of the Tren de Aragua gang, which operates from Venezuela, though details have been scarce. Killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of the military, J.D. Vance posted on social media. Not even close to true, by the way, J.D. The highest and best use of our military would be to defend our borders and make sure our citizenry is safe at home. In fact, we have a lot of issue with our military being used for not the best use when we go and play world police in the rest of the world. When a prominent commentator suggests that killing civilians without due process would be a war crime, Vance replied that he didn't care what you call it. That was Brian Krasenstein, by the way. Paul responded to Vance with his own questions. Did he ever read To Kill a Mockingbird? Paul wrote. Did he ever wonder what might happen if the accused were immediately executed without trial or representation? What a despicable and thoughtless sentiment it is to glorify killing someone without a trial. And that's the issue that I have with this. Now, I do understand military protocol, and I am not so deep into the, let's say, peacenik movement as Paul is to say that if there was some evidence that this was a drug cartel gang, that this wouldn't be within the use of the Coast Guard and the military to go back and take care of this boat. The problem that I have with this is the fact that I have yet to see any evidence of the fact that these are actual gang members. We have no evidence that there were any drugs on this boat. If it were to be a smuggling group trying to circumvent our laws and get drugs into the country, especially given the fact that, like the Hexenhammer said the other day, this country should be an exporter of drugs. We've got the manpower, we've got the knowledge to do so, and the drug war is basically pointless at this point. We should stop the drug war, we should be making the drugs here, and we should be exporting them around the world. Of course, not circumventing drug laws around the world. But we should be providing the world with the legal drugs that they desire, that are legal in this country. But yes, to go back and circumvent our laws to try to put these things on our streets, if we have some sort of evidence that it's there, and that's what they were doing, then no, this would be an authorized use of military force by the Coast Guard. You obviously first try to detain them, but if you cannot do so or they start shooting, then you have the right to use military force to defend yourself. But with that being said, yes, the evidence is scarce. Goats and Scarf says, I lost all my drugs in a tragic boating accident. The cartel, probably. Now, yes, and again, if you have the intel that you can show us, especially since they're already dead, you can't really go back and out your spies. if the people that they were spying on are currently dead. But if we can see the intel that, yes, these people were drug dealers or drug smugglers or human traffickers or whatever else the Coast Guard feels the need to enforce U.S. law with, or the Navy, I believe it was the Navy in this particular case, then yes, put your cards on the table. Otherwise, yes, if this is a civilian boat, as our friends on the left have suggested, also without evidence, then this is a war crime. Brian Krasenstein is conditionally correct on that. But I need to see evidence of this one before I make a determination on who is actually in the right in this one. I'm not just going to run off and say yes or no on one thing or the other. And no, I don't believe going out and shooting down boats without any sort of trial or, again, evidence is the proper use of our military. That's that Bush side of J.D. Vance coming out that I disagree with. I brought up the Bushes a lot today. It's mostly because I can't stand them. And we have a lot of the Republican coalition continuing to act like them. But what have I said since Big Don came into office the first time? There are an awful lot of Bush people that are just waiting for him to term out so they can use his popularity to go back and start another war. I mean, we could go full Beavis and Butthead on this. Palm asks, why are you talking about Bush so much? He's that Bush. Back when burn CDs were all the rage when I was still in my teens, I burned a CD. I called it Slim's Tunes because I was cringy like that. I burned a CD of all the music that I liked at the time. 24 songs that I would have had no skips on whatsoever. And I used an edited photo, Photoshop photo, of President Bush and Vice President Cheney, whose faces were altered to look like Beavis and Butthead. And the caption was, he said Bush. He said Dick. I want to see if I can find that again. I know the CDs are gone. I know that. Because they were in my big CD wallet that was in my blue truck when my blue truck got totaled, and whoever was at the tow yard stole my big binder of CDs out of my truck when it got totaled. So I will never actually see the mix CD again. That's long gone. But I just want the image off of it. You know? Alright, on more foreign news. From Reuters, Poland downs drones in its airspace, becoming the first NATO member to fire during the war in Ukraine. From Alan Charlish, Lydia Kelly, and Barbara Erling. I don't believe that for a second, because I believe our troops have been in the Ukraine since 2022. But the first one who's done it officially, with the knowledge of the world. Poland shot down suspected Russian drones in its airspace on Wednesday with the backing of aircraft from its NATO allies. The first time a member of the Western military alliance is known to have fired shots during Russia's war in Ukraine. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk told Parliament it was closest we have been to open conflict since World War II, though he's also said he had no reason to believe we're on the brink of war. Polish F-16s, Dutch F-35s, Italian... Why is so much of Eastern Europe using our jets? Don't they make their own over there now? Italian AWACS, surveillance planes, and NATO mid-air refueling aircraft scrambled in an operation to shoot down drones entering Polish airspace from Tuesday evening until morning, officials said. One drone smashed into pensioner Tomasz Wesolowski's two-story brick house in the eastern Polish village of, I'm going to butcher that name, Wyriki Wola. at 6:30 a.m. local time while he was downstairs watching the news about the incursion. Wow, that's a really good way to get really close to your news, isn't it? I'm watching the news and it's happening over my roof. The roof was destroyed and debris was strewn across the bedroom. Weslowski told Reuters, and the house needs to be demolished. I wonder if at any point the roof was on fire. They did need some water though, if it was. A blackened spot in a field elsewhere in the southeastern Poland showed some other drones had fallen. Moscow denies responsibility. Moscow denied the responsibility for the incident, with senior diplomat in Poland saying the drones had come from the direction of the Ukraine. Of course they did. Russia has passed the Ukraine. Peskov, do I need to get you a map? I mean, we can bring the map up. We can look at this and show that in the direction of the Ukraine is officially also the direction of Russia. Maps. Yeah, in the direction of the Ukraine. What is that big blob of land that is in the direction of Ukraine and past the Ukraine? Now, I'm not on Russia's side on this, but we've already had one false alarm in this particular war with a missile landing in Poland, or missile fragments rather landing in Poland, and they wound up coming from Kiev, and then that story completely disappeared out of the news. So I'm in the position of ask questions first, but from the direction of Ukraine is like literally the worst defense you could have used in this situation. There's the Ukraine in the direction. Oh, what's that? A large part of Russia in the direction of... Seriously. I love, by the way, how the Donbass region is officially a disputed border, but Google Maps has decided not to put the dashed lines around it yet. Because there should be dashed lines officially based on annexation from here to here, and then all the way up through this area too, around this region. Because this is officially a disputed border. They still have it around Crimea, even though that is not a disputed border at this point. In the direction of Ukraine. Jeez. Russia, we all own maps. Now, yes, I need to see some sort of hard evidence again before I can condemn Russia for this, because Kiev has already tried to pull this false flag once. And yeah, pretty much as soon as they got caught, we never heard this again. Yeah, everyone loves it when I bring out the map. Actually, we don't have why can't I think of his name? Mogwai. We don't have the Mogwai in here to come back and tell me that a map stream means that we're going to be carrying on to another day. Arvold says, where is Dora the Explorer? Palm says, didn't you hear? Dora got deported per South Park. That was funny, by the way. Arvold says, Dora was an anchor baby. Prove me wrong. Can you say born in this country? Yeah, that's the advantage of having you this close to the microphone. I can hear you giggle over that. Alright, let's grab one from Fox News while Palm calms down over there. Russia fires drones into Poland days after Trump meeting with NATO ally. Just a week after Trump met with Polish President Karol Nawrocki at the White House, Russia fired some 24 drones into the NATO nation on Wednesday. The assault prompted NATO allies to militarily respond to the apparent Russian attack, and for the first time brought Poland into the closest it's been to an open conflict since World War II. Allegedly, again. The move also prompted Trump to issue an ominous message on social media, in which he said, "What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go." I'm not 100% convinced again that this didn't come from Kiev. The Kremlin on Wednesday claimed there was no evidence the drones were of Russian origin after Andrei Ordash, Moscow's chief diplomat in Poland, who was summoned by Warsaw, told Russian state-owned media outlet RIA, "We see accusations as groundless. We know one thing, drones were flying from the direction of Ukraine. Do not look at map and see what is beyond Ukraine, past Poland, but drones flying from the direction of Ukraine." Ordash's comments contradicted assessments by totally 100% neutral party in this, Volodymyr Zelensky, who said, "At least 2 Russian drones that entered Polish territory during night used Belarusian airspace." Yeah, you're totally objective in this particular situation, Zelensky. In total, at least several dozen Russian drones were moving along the Ukraine-Belarus border and in the western regions of Ukraine, approaching targets in Ukraine and apparently Poland, he added. Neither NATO, the White House, nor Poland's defense ministry immediately responded to questions by Fox News Digital on whether drones that reportedly entered Polish airspace did so intentionally. Well, as far as for NATO or Poland go, I mean, I would just see Fox News on the caller ID and just hit send a voicemail. I'm sure the White House actually would have picked up, because they're cringy like that. And even if they masked their number and I picked it back up, "Hey, this is Fox News. We'd like to have a comment over what happened with the drones in Poland." Sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. In other foreign news, oh, we already did the "Here we go" one. I thought this was a Qatari one. From NPC News, Qatar says Israel killed any hope of hostage release with strike on Hamas in Doha, which was unfortunately authorized and done with the U.S.'s blessing. Because why wouldn't we insert ourselves into that? That stretch of land has been under conflict for 4,000 years. This is coming from NPC News from the Associated Press. Qatar's prime minister intensified its criticism of Israel over its attack targeting Hamas leaders in this country, saying Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu killed any hope of releasing hostages still held up in the Gaza Strip. The comments from Sheikh Mohammed bin, I'm going to butcher that name too, Abdul Rahman Al Thani.
Abdul Rahman.
Okay. I thought it was the other way. I actually had I can't say that actually. But a part of that name was the surname of somebody that I knew. I'll tell Palm who that was off camera, but again, we do keep my identity and location secret on here, so. But he pronounced it Raymond. Ahead of appearing on the United Nations on Thursday, underscored the wider anger among Gulf Arab countries over Israel's strike, which killed at least 6 people. I was meeting one of the hostages' families in the morning of the attack, Mohammed told CNN in an interview aired late Wednesday. They're counting on the ceasefire mediation. They have no other hope for that. The Sheikh added, I think that what Netanyahu has done yesterday, he just killed any hope for those hostages. I hate to say that, but that's kind of a dick move. Oh, sorry, we're just going to sit here and torture you. I'm meeting with you, but we're just going to keep torturing you here because Netanyahu was a dick, which everybody knew anyway. Qatar and Egypt have been key mediators to try to reach a ceasefire in the war in Gaza. Qatar has hosted Hamas's political leadership for years in Doha, in part over a request by the U.S. to encourage negotiations between the militant group and Israel. There was no immediate acknowledgement of the remarks from Netanyahu's government engaged in wars across the region since Hamas's October 7, 2023 assault on Israel. However, he's continued to defend the strikes and threatened further action against Qatar, a day after the U.S. President Trump had sought to ease tensions between the U.S. allies, including by assuring the Gulf nation that there would be no more such airstrikes on its soil. I don't understand why Israel is doing this to Qatar, of all places, either, by the way. Qatar has been in a region that has been completely war-torn for, as I mentioned, 4,000 years. Modern Qatar has been actually a fairly peaceful nation in the rest of this here. Yemen has been under a constant state of civil war since they started calling it Yemen. But Qatar has been fairly peaceful, and they've played the mediator in a lot of conflicts that have been over here. They've been the Switzerland of the Middle East a lot. So I don't 100% understand where it is that Israel is thinking that they need to go drop a bunch of missiles in there, or how that could even possibly help their cause. But it doesn't seem to me like an intelligent use of your military force. The damned man said it might just be because Hamas is hiding there, which is entirely possible. I understand that of the fact, but it's not like when you go back and bomb out the Houthis in Yemen, because they actually do carry a fairly amount of political weight in Yemen, based on the fact that they're one of the leading factions through the midst of the three-way civil war that Yemen has going on right now. They have the possibility of becoming the government of Yemen. Hamas has absolutely no possibility of becoming the government of Qatar. I think it's supposed to be Qatar, but I don't know. I'm used to just saying Qatar. Possibly because of how I pronounced the key weapon for the assassin in Diablo 2, which is also Qatar. But Israel's just going to apparently go blow everybody up until Big Brother US comes in and steps in and helps them out. Because, of course, why wouldn't we go back and do that? We've been doing it since the 40s, since Israel was incepted. I don't know why, but it's just been a thing that we do in our foreign policy. Or they just get completely wiped off the map. Which would make a few people in my Discord kind of happy. I'm not one of those people. Let's just again double check the map and see where it is that they're, because that's always the fun part. Because on the midst of that, they're flying whatever it is that they're using for munitions all across the big guarantor of peace in the region. Saudi Arabia to get to Qatar. I don't know. I don't see this as an advisable way to do things. So they pronounce it the same way you do. And someone I regretfully know worked over there for a while, they pronounced it the same. But yes, that is our Middle East update for the day because, well, I guess Israel's just going to keep us in a the perpetual state of potential World War III. Alright. The last one, I know we've skipped over this for a little bit. And I apologize for that because I know with me being anti-government, I know we've talked a little bit about this. We got to talk a bit about the National Guard usage in regular U.S. soil, because that's a big thing. So we're going to use NPC 10 out of Boston to talk about this because, yes, the National Guard was deployed into Boston to help assist the ICE and immigration and deportation efforts in the Bay State. Mass leaders blast Trump admin's latest immigration efforts in the Bay State. By the way, when I lived there, Romney was the governor of that state. Yes, that Romney, by the way. From Lauren Melendez and Asher Klein. The Trump admin says it's expanding its ICE activity in the Bay State. And local leaders in Massachusetts are blasting the federal immigration efforts. DHS is calling its Operation Patriot 2.0. Really? That's what you're calling it? You might as well call it the Patriot Act 3.0. And the agency says one of its goals is to flood Boston with ICE raids and arrest the worst of the worst criminals. Mass Governor Maura Healey says the whole thing is political theater while calling out a social media post by the president. Trump posted to Truth Social an AI image of himself mimicking the 1979 movie Apocalypse Now, which explores the horror and psychological impact of war. Good movie, by the way. It's one of the few I have seen. They made us watch it in one of my mass media classes in college. Instead, the photo says Shypocalypse and the phrase, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War." That is not something you should be saying about a city under your own jurisdiction, by the way. The phrase makes reference to the Department of Defense's recent rebranding of the Department of War. While the post is about Chicago, Healey blasted the graphic during an appearance on MSDNC. To great cheers from the other host, by the way. I didn't watch it, I just know what MSNBC does. The post the president put out bragging about some Chicago apocalypse. That's insane, it's not normal, it's not right, Healey said. It's not public safety, it's not proper law enforcement. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu has warned federal authorities that if they do not follow the law, they will be held accountable. We don't know what the law is yet because Mayor Wu hasn't made it up yet, but if they don't follow it, there's going to be hell to pay. In a statement over the weekend, a DHS spokesperson who didn't give their name because we love anonymous sources around here. It could be the night janitor, we don't know. Referred to the initial operation as a success and derided the so-called sanctuary policy of Boston and its mayor as privileging criminals over U.S. citizens, which they've been doing for quite a while. There's a reason that I only lived in Dorchester for 2 weeks. Sanctuary policies like those pushed by Mayor Wu not only attract and harbor criminals, but also place these public safety threats above the interests of law-abiding American citizens, ICE is arresting sex offenders, pedophiles, murderers, drug dealers, and gang members, released by local authorities, the statement said. WHO has reiterated that its policies on immigrants, limiting local officials' cooperations with deportation enforcement, have made it among the country's safest cities, including in her response to a federal lawsuit filed this week over Boston's sanctuary law, the Boston Trust Act. It wasn't immediately clear how many federal agents were taking part in Operation Patriot 2.0 or what mass communities the operation was being conducted in. Bet you I know one. So I want to talk about this and a little bit about what's happening with Trump and his use of military force in the cities of the U.S. Now, I don't necessarily think it was right to use military force in D.C. to go clean up some of the crime problem going on there. But it is legal. Because of its federal district status, yes, he has the ability to go in and go get that all cleaned up and take over the local governance if necessary, because it actually is under the purview of the federal government. The local government acts at the pleasure of the federal government for DC, but only for DC. And I've had this issue, and like I said, we did not get to finish out stream last week because, well, I was losing frames left and right. You can hear it in the audio platform of the complaining I was doing. You couldn't hear it on the live stream because, well, I was offline. But I do keep a recording going off of this in case we do have internet hiccups. So I put the recording up, not the live stream version of it. But yes, when it comes to places like Boston and Chicago, and yes, even to a point LA, to use the National Guard as a federal law enforcement arm, I mean, that is blatantly unconstitutional unless you are assisting a federal agency, which technically legally, and I don't want to say this too loud because while I know this is a small channel and there's almost a 0% chance that anything that I say here gets back to the White House, technically legally, the FBI could go in and run operations for any crime that's interstate, which I'm sure that Chicago has a lot of, Boston has a lot of, even LA probably has a lot of. They could use that as its purview and then use the National Guard to assist, because that would be an assistance in federal law enforcement. It wouldn't be right, but it would be technically legal at that point. Please don't let anybody get this message back to the White House on that. But that's, and again, what we're doing with this. Trump is making it sound like they're going to go back in and start sending the National Guard in to crack skulls like they did in D.C. But they can't do that. They can't override local law enforcement per the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. However, going on a deportation raid, or raids, as they're doing in Boston and as they're threatening to do in Chicago, and having the National Guard support the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is legal for them to do. As far as DC goes, and I said this on X when they first started talking about sending the Guard into Chicago. People were complaining about the fact that, you know, they're doing the fascist thing and taking over the cities and this and that and the next thing because of what they did in DC. In DC, it's legal. We can sit back and argue over the ethics of it for the next 10 generations. We can have that debate, and I would be on the side of that debate that says that it was wrong to do. But we can have the debate, but it's legal. Per the Constitution, per the federal district status of DC, it is. It is legal. It is not legal to override the Chicago Police Department with the National Guard, unless they are doing an agency assist with a federal agency. Jeep says, it's a scary prospect to wield that much power locally, but if locals are incapable or refusing to do the job, the National Guard has the authority to step in. Technically, no, they don't, again, unless they send the FBI in to go back and do federal law enforcement. Would be the only way to go back and do that. And that would be only for federal crimes or crimes that have an interstate nature to them. Like white-collar crime involving Gary, Indiana, and Chicago would be an example of something like that. But to send the National Guard troops in to crack skulls on your average street mugger, no, that doesn't fly. I do love, by the way, however, like, as soon as they talked about, open war zone that is Chicago and how horrible it is and how unsafe it is, like 12 liberal influencers, including the Krasensteins, all posted pictures of themselves excuse me, at Millennium Park and telling us how safe that they feel over at Millennium Park. I'm like, yeah, go down on the south side near Wacker Avenue at 10 o'clock at night and tell me how safe you feel. Because you're going to have a lot different opinion than 1 o'clock in the afternoon in one of the most enforced areas of the city of Chicago. Those are two completely different things. Alright, I'm done with the news for the day, but we still have a very, very brief segment of things I like and things that I hate. Because most of the things I like and things that I hate actually wound up on the news for the day. But first thing we do before we do any of that is we look at the rules of acquisition, which, again, because of the truncated portion of last week's show, we skipped because we just shut it down and called the end. So, we are at the 109th rule of acquisition from DS9 episode Rivals. The 108th rule of acquisition. I'm sorry, no, it is the 109th. I looked at the 108th for whatever reason. The 109th rule of acquisition. Dignity and an empty sack is worth the sack. That's a pretty common one that we all know outright well and good. We phrase it in different ways, of course, but you should have your dignity, and you shouldn't have to degrade yourself to a point in order to even survive, to make profit. But if it comes down to a point of survival, and your sack is empty, then yes, you might have to go sweep up a floor. Even if you're master's degree college educated, you might have to go sweep up a floor, wash dishes if you can find a job doing those things. Do basic cashiering at a gas station or whatnot, just to survive. Yes, you'll lose your dignity. Yes, you'll feel ashamed over the fact that you have a master's degree at that point. But you'll be surviving. I don't necessarily agree with this rule. Because yes, you should be capable enough to go back and do a job to survive if you have nothing else, if there's nothing else in your field or whatnot. It shouldn't be below you to pour coffee at, it should be below everybody to pour coffee at Starbucks because Starbucks sucks. It shouldn't be below you to pour coffee at a Dunkin' Donuts if that's the only thing that's available to you at the time. So, it's one of the rare ones that I disagree with, but that is your Ferengi rule of acquisition for the day. Alright, let's do a couple things that I hate. Then we'll do one thing that I like. Alright, from the street. Beloved 117-year-old Home Depot rival closing and liquidating. I hate stories like this. Because this is a local... they have a national franchise. They're a True Value store, but True Value stores carry the franchise, but they're all locally owned. They locally employ people. And don't get me wrong, I love the Home Depot. I do. There are not any Home Depots around where I live. Because they were all forced out. I do love the Home Depot. I like Menards too. I do. But I love the Home Depot. But they should have competition. They 100% should have competition and be able to come back out and have somebody come in and say, hey, I can sell for better. I can maybe not sell for as low as the Home Depot is, but I can get you that personal touch that the Home Depot just can't. And we have another one shutting down. In any given neighborhood, you're apt to find a mix of national chains and mom and pop stores, and while the retail giants like Walmart or Dollar General might have the lowest prices, there's something to be said for shopping locally. When you walk into a mom and pop store, the owners care about getting your business, so while you might pay a few dollars more for the items you're buying, in return you might get some better customer service along with superior quality. Case in point, your neighborhood toy store might charge 3 to 7% more for products than what you'll pay on Amazon. But Amazon isn't going to help you pick out the perfect gift for your boss's 6-year-old child. A neighborhood toy store employee will. It's often the case that retail chains and local stores can coexist peacefully with one another, but over time there's a real risk of the neighborhood shops you know and love going out of business. In Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, customers are used to walking into Ritter's True Value Hardware for their household essentials and home improvement needs, but now the iconic store has announced that it will close permanently after a successful 117 years in business. Ritter's is holding a liquidation sale to clear out its inventory before it closes its doors for good. F in the chat for Ritter's. The owners have been toying with the idea of closing the store for quite some time. They finally made the decision official. It's obviously sad. It's a staple of Mechanicsburg Borough. Store manager Phil Shearer told The Street, "Our loyal customers are upset. We've dealt with them for 40 plus years." For Mechanicsburg residents, the loss of Ritter's doesn't just mean they'll need to find another source for home goods and supplies. It means they're losing the personal touch and friendly atmosphere that can only be found in a local store. Now, one of the things I like about Menards, and Menards is on par. If you don't live in the general Wisconsin area or the few states that surround it, you don't know what Menards is. But it's a big box store that still has some of the hometown feel. And the people, at least here, are willing to come back out and give you the personal touch that Ritter's would give you normally. So I do like the idea that there is a Menards here, and I've worked at Home Depot and they have some of it as well. They just don't have it to the level like a local True Value would. So I'm sad to see this, and I do hope that the people who are employed by Ritter's do find their feet fairly quickly. Other things that I hate. I wanted to talk just briefly about this one here. I almost talked about this with the Charlie Kirk news, but I specifically wanted this to be on things that I hate for a couple of different reasons. Part of it is the divisiveness here. But Lauren Chen put out a statement the other day, with it being the year since she and her family got raided by the FBI and taken into custody for being unwitting Russian spies, so the DOJ complaint said. With the confirmation now that they are no longer under investigation, part of that does come from the fact that there is a change in federal bureaus of investigation at this point. And a lot of this investigation, I believe, was political in nature. For those of you who don't remember, and I didn't spend a lot of time on this about a year ago, a few members of conservative media that you know, Chen, Rubin, Tim Pool, Christensen, all got wrapped up. They all joined forces into this Tenet Media thing. They got a big investment, which wound up being from RT. And while Chen denies that this happened, no, we do have the records that you got the investment from RT. Part of the reason that I hate this. But everyone got arrested for being used by Russian propaganda to interfere in U.S. election. And got people like Tim Pool and Matt Christensen and Lauren Chen all labeled as Russian assets and Russian spies. But there's a ton of stuff all around on this that I hate about this. I hate the fact that she's out here first just with her hand out with money. But also knowing the fact that she has to be at this point out here with her hand out for money. Because of the fact that the federal government has seized almost every part of their savings, every part of their wealth, every part of their cash on hand because of this ongoing investigation. And I hate also the arguments that it brought out, because it brought out some of the worst in our Discord. And it went for several days back and forth talking about this. Now, myself, I would not go and donate to Chen. And I hope that she does well. And it's not coming from a place of animus for Chen. But realistically, while she herself was reduced to literally nothing, being forced to flee the country that she grew up in at the time, the people who were able to continue on with their careers, who she helped to bankroll, should be the first ones stepping up to go back and help her. She scratched their backs, they should be scratching hers. And no, there should not be a situation where she's got her hand out at this point, because your Tim Pools, your Dave Rubins, your Matt Christensen's do still have their 6-figure, 7-figure salaries that they get from donations because of being bigger programs, especially Pool. Pool should be the first one out there with his hands out. I'm sorry, not with his hands out, but with his checkbook out saying, okay, how much do you need to live? Because he has made this into one of the biggest industries out there. Ruben, too, by the way, who's got a controlling stake in Rumble, which some of you might be watching this on right now. But there are things that I just can't stand about this all the way around. And this, of course, is coming from somebody who will love it if you went in on Twitch, which that's where it seems to see the most people coming from, and go use your Amazon Prime sub and help me out for the month. But I only want you to come back out here. I only have my hand out while I'm providing a product for you. I would not come back out with a Gifts and Go and say, hey, help me with my living expenses right now. Damn, man, says the insane part is it even says it's unwitting. Yes. Yeah, no, we get this. I don't think there was any malice anywhere behind any of this, but there's a lot of wrong on a lot of parts with this particular story. And because of all of it, I am choosing not to give my views to Lauren Chen at this time until I have everything sorted out. And again, the fact that she's got her hand out for this when literal millionaires were affected by her and were able to come back on and still have their careers and say incredible things about her. This should be on Pool before it should be on her. And really, honestly, Tim, if you're watching this, you should hire Lauren Chen. You've got far cringier people on your network. Set up a show for her. Let her go back and earn her own way. And because you've got the means to do so. Alright. Couple more things. Just this headline screams to me potential for misuse. We'll read a little bit of the article because, well, there's not much to it. But just this headline says, this is rife and ready for misuse at some point. Disclose.tv, scientists develop biohybrid microbots from dead bull sperm coated with magnetic nanoparticles that can be remotely controlled to deliver treatments to the female reproductive tract. On paper, this looks good. But every part of this just tells me potential for misuse in one way or another. I would like to be in the research room where somebody came up and said, hey, I wonder what we can use this dead bull sperm for. Alright, briefly from the article, researchers have engineered biohybrid microbots using dead bull sperm coated with iron oxide nanoparticles, enabling precise control and tracking by X-ray guided magnetic fields for potential medical use in the reproductive tract. The process involves coating sperm with nanoparticles through electrostatic self-assembly, followed by actuation using a robotic arm with a rotating magnet. X-ray fluoroscopy, is that how that is? Visualizes cluster movement as demonstrated in a fluid-filled lumen and a 3D printed reproductive tract model. I wonder if somebody just looked at this at some point and said, I wonder if this is how we can get Minotaur babies. No, that wasn't actually a serious suggestion because the genetic patterns would not match up, but clusters averaging 0.9 millimeters roll at 8 to 12 millimeters per second with speeds peaking at 10 hertz before fragmenting due to fluid drag. The study confirms simultaneous actuation and localization of first for torque-driven biohybrid systems. So again, this would not normally be something that I hate based on its initial application, because I think that the initial idea of it would be used for good. But this is just one of those things that just screams ready for misuse to me. And the last one on things that I hate. We got the porn brain. Because there are so many people who read both 4chan and Reddit who jump into this and believe this. Nick, who is at Big Bick Nick over on X, says a whole family broken apart before it even started because this guy couldn't stop reading horror stories on Reddit and became obsessed with an imaginary scenario of his own creation. I mean, with me, there's been no question at all, even before birth, of do I want a paternity test or not. I don't need one. I have had no question about this whatsoever. But this guy, right here, who is obviously so porn-brained and so... Well, the incels on Reddit said that this might be a possibility, so let's do this. Let me read what this guy said. I met my way through a mutual friend. We were friends for a year or so before we both became single and decided we were compatible enough to date. We were together 2 years before we got married. I do not know what got into me. My wife is loyal, faithful, but I have been reading statistics about how many men are raising children that aren't their own, and had absolutely no idea around the time she found out she was pregnant. We both wanted children. We weren't actively preventing it. About 3 months in, I couldn't take it anymore, and I told her I wanted a paternity test. She asked me if I was accusing her of cheating. I said yes. She asked me why, and I couldn't even answer her. Neither of us had ever cheated or been cheated on. She works very hard, long hours at her job, but has always let me know where she is, who she will be with. If she's going somewhere with friends, I was always welcomed. I do not know why I did this, and it's tearing me up. Well, I'm going to go on a limb halfway through this anecdote and say, I know why you did this. It's because you're a moron. But she told me she'd gladly give me the paternity test, but that she was moving back to her mother's until that time because she didn't know if she wanted to continue in the marriage. She got an amniocentesis test about 20 weeks. I'm the father, and when she told me, I was so happy. But she wasn't. Imagine that. She told me that she felt like she fell out of love with me the minute I asked her that she had no desire to reconcile. Our daughter was born July 10th. My wife has gone through a lawyer and started through the motions of divorce and issues of custody. She's since gotten her own apartment. Weird. She said she wants to keep this as amicable as possible for the sake of her daughter, but I just want to be a family. She doesn't want to support or alimony because she makes more than enough to cover herself and her daughter's needs and live a comfortable life. You dumbass. And this is why terminally online is such a problem with so many people too. Because they come in this and they hear it over and over again, and then that's the next thing they know. It's just, could it be me? Could it be me? Oh my God, could it be me? In a situation like this, where there was no reason to even suspect that it could have been. One of the fun ones off this was first comment is, as easy as it is to find the statistics that show 30% of men are raising kids that aren't their own, it's just as easy to discover that the number comes from paternity test companies that have an obvious bias. The real number is close to 1 to 3%. The manosphere is rotting men's and boys' brains. So, yeah. There's that. If you have concerns about this, the time to figure that out is not before you put Rod A into slot B and don't do protection. The time to do that and figure that out is, before you got married, while you're still trying to figure out where you're at. Not when there's another life involved. You moron. Alright, and let's finish off on a positive note with one thing that I like. Wanted to do this last week, but did not happen, of course, again. Pom and I have been watching together, but we are 5 episodes into King of the Hill Revival.
I lost track.
We're either 4 or 5 episodes into King of the Hill Revival, and I can tell you right off the bat, does not disappoint. It's got all the energy of the original. It's got the energy of modern conservative person trying to adjust to changing world and the way that, and not knowing how things work. I like what they did with the Bobby character, kind of putting him more where his dad was, trying to figure out modern dating. Obviously, Hank was married at the start of the other series, but trying to figure out modern dating and how that's changed from when he was a kid, which he didn't really know what was going on when he was a kid, let's be honest, from the original series. But trying to figure that out, and friends with benefits and one-time thing and stuff like that. But also just Hank seeing the world change around him and trying to adjust to it. I thought it was a great idea to have him be in Saudi Arabia. Now, I don't think that Hank would ever be at an Aramco base or leave the country in the reality of his character, but it was a necessary development for the producers to take him out of the world so it could change, so he could go back and adjust to it again. And I think that they handled that very, very well. I don't know. I have nothing but praise for this. I do question how Cotton would feel about it to find out that his grandson now doesn't own, but manages a restaurant of German and Japanese fusion. I bet you he's rolling over in his grave. Except he can't be, because they cremated him and they dumped his ashes down a toilet. But even though we did this when the first revival came out and we saw the things, and I said I was hopeful, we're going to watch the same trailer again. The season 14 official trailer from Hulu.
Oh, man, look at that Return of the Dang Old King, man. Oh, wow. I'm getting a hug. Okay, emotional.
It's been hard with you and Peggy gone, Hank. I might have let myself go a little.
World has changed, Dad.
I don't know how to kick someone's ass over Zoom, but I'll figure it out. Huh. Okay. Is that a...
Don't worry. They're both all gender.
Uh-huh. Are we all gender?
5 stars?
That was hilarious.
I'm
My
gonna give
mom
you
was
a
with us
4.
when we were watching
That
that
way
one.
it gives you something to work towards. If you ask me, 5s should be rare in this world.
We sure are. I do not want to be conceited, but I have been told my whole life I'm a 5. Irashamase, Dilkome. I'm your chef, Bobby Hill. Dang it! Nowadays, beer is fruitier, bolder, more assertive.
I've been drinking beer for 40 years, and I never wished once that it tasted more like fruit. I love a dance with clear rules and instructions. Bobby wants to bring that new girl over for dinner.
The vegan? What the hell am I supposed to feed her?
Can we just put some grass in a bowl?
I cannot believe they're allowing it to happen openly in the streets.
Fake sport, man. You got to tackle something, man. The thing they don't tell you about retirement is there's so much time to fill.
Honey, you do not need to get up at the crack of dawn every morning.
Peggy, I didn't retire to sleep my life away like some Nepo baby.
It's Bobby. Yellow, honey. So glad you called. Are you eating something? Let me hang up and call back.
Again, now that I know the context of, like, from the trailer, I didn't know exactly the context of the making out scene, but I mean, they could tell. But now that I've seen season 1 and know the context, that's even funnier. If you haven't checked out King of the Hill, the new one on Hulu, get on Hulu and check it out. And if you don't have Hulu, I'm not going to tell you to go find a back channel way to do it, but because that would be illegal. But there should be some way for you to figure this out, and I'm going to leave it at that. All right, we're done. We're out of here. Let's do one last check at the live chat. Jeep says Home Depot is just Orange Harbor Freight. I don't know. I think their quality is a little bit higher than that. I get where you're coming from. They have more stuff, though, too, honestly. Damned Man says the insane part, going to the Lauren Chen article, it even says unwitting. Palm says, dirty deeds done with sheep or other farm animals. Do you want minotaurs? That's how you get minotaurs. Palm wants a maternity test. Ed Jr. has 0% of Palm's genes. How does it even work?
I don't know. How does she look exactly like you?
She has your facial expressions.
Those are learned.
All right, and Arbol is thanking us out, and let's throw up some music, and let's head out of here. That's not a regular outro music, but it's just fun music. An NES game about drawing pictures does not need to go that hard. Hold on. They have their propaganda for Windows up on my screen right now, so I have to go and search my audio file for the outro music instead of, just playing it. Alright. Well, that was a good stream. We're done. We're out of here. Under 3 hours. Not by much, but we're under 3 hours right now. So, thanks so much, everybody who came by and hung out and got us in. We got to figure out when the best time for contemporary is. Maybe we'll talk about it in the Discord. Maybe Palm and I will sit back and talk about it in person and figure out what works with our schedules. But I get good viewership a lot of times if I go on Wednesday in the early morning, or I got really good viewership midday today. And I also, again, I want to see where Steven is going because, well, I don't want to step on his toes because he did not take a month break like I did. So there's some things to move on here. I don't think early afternoon is, well, maybe it's the best time. I know maybe drive time. I don't know. There's some things moving on here, but anyway, where's my, there we go. That's supposed to be up on the top there. Anyway, we're out of here. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We will see you here next time, or hopefully some happier news. Trust me, I did not intend to spend my 1000th episode talking mostly about Charlie Kirk. I wanted to celebrate the moments of contemporary for the last 7 years. But that's not how we did. So anyway, take care. Thank you again. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. Stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going to go find somebody to rate. Otherwise, we will see you here next time. Again, bye-bye. Take care. Love you all. And we'll see you next time. Hit the subscribe button and drop the donations if you love them. Bye-bye. Take care.